Sir, step away from the child. The officer says, hand near his holster. The store manager points, trembling. She was alone, acting suspicious. I had to call. Then the doors swing open. Heels click. A woman in a navy suit walks in, calm, commanding. She locks eyes with the officer. I'm her mother. Then, coldly, and I'm the CEO of this brand. Everything stops. Faces drop. What really happened moments before? Let's rewind. The sun beat down on the glossy storefront windows of the luxury boutique. Inside, the scent of jasmine perfume mixed with new leather. Shelves gleamed with designer handbags under soft golden lights. A girl, no older than 10, wandered near the entrance. Her curls bounced with each step. She wore pink sneakers and clutched a folded dollar bill. Her wide eyes scanned the shelves, full of silent wonder. A man behind the counter narrowed his gaze. He straightened his name tag, manager. He leaned to whisper into a headset. His eyes stayed locked on the girl. She reached out, almost touching a shiny black purse. The manager's voice sharpened. He stepped forward quickly. Where is your parent? He asked. The girl turned slowly. She blinked. They are here, she said quietly. The manager frowned. No loitering, he said. His voice was firm now. The girl's fingers tightened around the dollar bill. I am waiting, she said again. I do not want to steal. The manager's nostrils flared. He tapped the headset. Yes, possible shoplifter. Minor. Alone. The girl stood still. The smell of leather suddenly felt too strong. Customers glanced up, frowning. 2 officers walked through the door minutes later. Their boots thudded against the marble floor. One officer crouched beside the girl. Sweetheart, where is your mom? He asked. The girl turned toward the back of the store. There, she whispered. High heels clicked against the tile. A tall woman in a gray suit emerged from behind a privacy curtain. Her face was calm. Her voice cut through the quiet. Is there a problem with my daughter? The manager blinked. The officer stood up straighter. She stepped forward, eyes locked on the manager. I am Dr. Alexis Monroe. I am the CEO of this company. The manager's mouth fell open. His headset slipped slightly from his ear. Sweat began to bead at his temples. Silence rippled through the boutique. One customer gasped. Dr. Monroe looked down at her daughter. Did someone accuse you? She asked softly. The girl nodded once. The manager began to stammer. I thought she was alone. I did not know. You saw her skin, Dr. Monroe said. That was enough for you. Her voice was ice. Enough to call police on a child. The officers shifted uncomfortably. One looked toward the exit. The boutique air thickened. Even the quiet hum of overhead lights seemed louder. Dr. Monroe stepped closer. The heels of her shoes echoed like thunder. You saw a child of color and assumed she was a threat. Her tone was measured, but the fire in her eyes burned steady. The manager swallowed hard. He opened his mouth. No sound came out. Do you know how many times this happens? Her voice was calm, surgical. Do you know what that does to a child's sense of safety? The girl looked up at her mother. Her small hand still clutched the folded dollar. I just wanted to buy the bag charm, she whispered. I saved for weeks. Gasps spread through the store like a wave. One woman stepped back from the display, clutching her own purse tighter. The officers exchanged glances. They looked to the manager, then to Dr. Monroe. Neither spoke. The girl reached out, placing the crumpled bill on the counter. The silence was heavier now. Dr. Monroe turned toward the officers. Thank you for responding, she said evenly. But your presence should never have been required. Her gaze turned back to the manager. And you? What exactly made you feel unsafe? The manager shook his head slowly. I made a mistake. A mistake? Her voice sharpened just enough to slice the air. A mistake is forgetting someone's name. A mistake is ringing up the wrong item. But calling armed officers on a child? That is not a mistake. That is a decision. The girl looked down at her shoes. Her laces were frayed. Dr. Monroe noticed. She crouched, gently readying them. Her fingers moved with practiced ease. When she stood, her face was unreadable. "This is not about your feelings," she said to the manager. "It is about your actions and the impact they have." A man near the dressing rooms raised his phone. He had been filming. His red light blinked. Others began whispering. Someone near the back muttered, "This is going online." The manager's face turned pale. He backed away from the counter. I did not mean any harm," he said. "You already caused it." Dr. Monroe's words hit like stones. "My daughter's trust is not yours to play with. Her dignity is not a variable." She turned to her child. "Do you still want the charm?" The girl hesitated. She looked up at the counter, then shook her head. "I do not want anything from here anymore." Her voice trembled, but she stood tall. A murmur rose from the shoppers. One woman placed a scarf back on the rack. Another left her basket on the floor and walked out. The boutique no longer felt luxurious. It felt exposed. Dr. Monroe took her daughter's hand. They walked toward the exit together. The girl glanced once over her shoulder. The officer stood frozen in place. The manager leaned against the counter, still stunned. Outside, the street buzzed with traffic and life. The heat wrapped around them, but it felt clean, real. The girl squeezed her mother's hand. "Why did you think I was stealing?" she asked. Dr. Monroe paused. "Because some people carry fear where they should carry kindness. Because they choose to believe lies instead of looking with open eyes." They crossed the street. Each step echoed with quiet power. A young woman on the sidewalk caught sight of them. She had seen the video. She placed her hand over her heart. "I know who you are," she said softly. Dr. Monroe nodded once. Her daughter glanced up, unsure. The woman crouched. "You are brave," she said to the girl. "You reminded all of us today." The girl blinked. A small smile flickered across her face. "Thank you," she whispered. They continued walking. News vans passed them on the road, heading toward the store. The video had spread. People were talking. Voices were rising. But in that moment, the world around them quieted. Birds chirped in the distance. A breeze rustled the trees. The girl looked up at the sky. It was deep blue, wide and unbroken. "Can I tell my friends what happened?" she asked. "You can tell them anything," her mother said. "This is your story, too." She nodded. "I want them to know that we stood up. And we did not stay quiet." Dr. Monroe smiled. "You are learning fast. And the world is learning from you." A block away, a small cafe welcomed them in. The smell of cinnamon and fresh bread drifted out the door. A barista looked up, recognition sparkling in her eyes. "No charge," she said gently. "Not today." The girl looked to her mom. She nodded. They sat by the window. 2 mugs of cocoa steamed between them. Outside, more people gathered near the boutique. Some held signs. Others just stood in silence. A woman from corporate had arrived. She walked briskly past the cameras. She demanded answers. The manager was nowhere to be seen. The store's windows, once pristine, now reflected the city in question. Back at the cafe, the girl pulled a crayon from her pocket. She began to draw. A tree. 2 people beneath it. One reaching down. One reaching up. Her mother watched. She said nothing. The silence was full, rich with meaning. The girl looked up. "Can we go back tomorrow?" Dr. Monroe raised her brows. "To the store?" "No," the girl said. "To the tree in the park. I want to climb it." Her mother smiled. "Yes, we can do that." The girl sipped her cocoa. She felt the warmth spread through her chest. No more fear. No more folded dollar bills. Just one simple truth. She belonged, and the world will have to reckon with that. Dr. Monroe stirred her cocoa slowly. She watched her daughter sketch with a crayon worn down to the paper. Each line was careful, purposeful. The cafe hummed softly with conversation. A jazz tune floated through the speakers above. Outside, the world kept moving. But here, time felt slower, more honest. The girl shaded the branches of her tree. Then she added tiny stars in the sky. "There weren't stars in the park," Dr. Monroe said gently. "I know," her daughter replied, "but I want them to be there next time." Dr. Monroe leaned back in her chair. She sipped her cocoa. The warmth settled deep. Her daughter's face was calm now, but her eyes still held questions. "Will the man lose his job?" the girl asked. Dr. Monroe paused. She met her daughter's gaze. "I do not know," she said truthfully, "but he will have to answer for what he did." The girl nodded. She did not speak for a while. She stared at her drawing, then turned the page. Now she drew a store, a glass door, a small figure standing just outside. "He thought I did not belong there," she said. "Yes," her mother replied, "but what someone believes does not make it true." The girl colored in her pink sneakers. She drew herself taller, with a crown. "I was still brave," she said. Dr. Monroe smiled. "You were," she said. "You still are." Across the cafe, people glanced their way. Some recognized them. Some did not. But they felt something unspoken. A woman came over. She had gray hair and soft eyes. "I saw the video," she said. "I have 2 granddaughters." She looked at the girl. "You remind me of them." The girl blinked. The woman reached into her tote bag. She pulled out a small leather-bound notebook. "I want you to have this," she said, "for your stories." The girl accepted it carefully. "Thank you." The woman nodded and returned to her table. Dr. Monroe placed her hand on her daughter's. "You see," she said, "your truth touches people." The girl opened the notebook. The first page was blank. She wrote one sentence. "I was there, and I remember everything." Later, they left the cafe. The sun was lower now. Their shadows stretched long behind them. A light breeze swept fallen leaves into gentle spirals. Dr. Monroe's phone buzzed. A message from the board. They wanted a meeting. They wanted change. Her grip tightened on the phone. Change was coming. They walked past the boutique again. This time from the other side of the street. Police tape now blocked the entrance. A sign had been taped to the glass. "Closed for review." Reporters hovered outside. One spotted them. Snapped a photo. The girl looked away. "Why do they still care?" she asked. Dr. Monroe crouched to meet her eyes. "Because truth demands attention," she said. "And some truths refuse to be ignored." They reached the park gates. The iron bars glinted in the golden light. Children ran across the grass. Laughter echoed from the swings. The girl ran ahead. Dr. Monroe followed, slower. She reached the tree first. Its branches stretched wide, welcoming, rooted, steady. The girl climbed easily. Her feet found grooves worn smooth with time. She perched on a thick branch. High, strong. Dr. Monroe stood below. "Be careful," she called. "I am," the girl said. "I just want to see farther." She looked out across the park. Then past it, past the boutique, past the fear, to the future. Other children ran beneath the tree. They looked up. They smiled. A boy shouted, "Can I climb too?" The girl laughed. "Yes, come on." Soon, 3 children were in the tree. Their voices filled the air. Dr. Monroe sat on a bench. She watched them. A breeze lifted her hair. Her phone buzzed again. But she did not look. Not yet. Right now. Her daughter was flying. Not with wings, but with strength, with joy, with truth. A young woman walked past the bench. She wore a shirt that read, "Believe Black Girls." She nodded to Dr. Monroe. Dr. Monroe nodded back. She finally opened her phone. Hundreds of messages. News outlets. Supporters. Critics. Executives. Even lawmakers. One message stood out. Subject: policy proposal draft. Immediate implementation. Her eyes widened. This was real. This was happening. Her fingers typed quickly. Schedule the meeting. No delays. Asterisk, asterisk. She looked up again. The sun now rested low behind the trees. The children began to climb down. Her daughter ran back, breathless, face glowing, shoes dusty. "I felt like a bird," she said. "You looked like one, too," Dr. Monroe replied. "Do you feel safe now?" The girl thought for a moment. "Yes," she said, "but I still want to make it safer for the next girl." Dr. Monroe reached out and hugged her, tight, unmoving. In that moment, no one could take away what they had. Not ignorance, not fear, not even the silence that so often follows injustice. They walked home as the streetlights flickered on. The girl held the notebook in one hand, her mother's hand in the other. At every step, they left behind more than footprints. They left a path, for others to follow, for others to widen, for others to claim as their own, because belonging is not granted. It is lived, owned, and when challenged, it rises, just like a girl in pink sneakers, climbing higher, reaching farther, never asking permission to exist, only daring the world to do better. The sun reached its peak as the crowd lingered in the street. Posters fluttered in the breeze. Children held crayons and signs. Teenagers chanted with clenched fists. Mothers clutched water bottles and cell phones. Fathers carried toddlers on their shoulders. And in the center stood Alina, not taller than most, but seen by all. A woman approached from the crowd. She wore a charcoal suit, her hair pinned back. A gold badge hung from her belt. Asterisk, asterisk, City Inclusion Office. Asterisk, asterisk. She extended her hand to Dr. Monroe. "We saw the footage," she said. "We are initiating policy review across all major retail partners." Dr. Monroe's expression stayed neutral. "Review is not enough," she said. "We need enforcement." The woman nodded. "Which is why we want your voice on the task force." Dr. Monroe glanced at Alina. The girl gave a single, determined nod. "We accept," her mother replied. More cameras turned toward them. Alina blinked but held her ground. A reporter pushed forward. "Alina," she asked, "what would you say to other children who feel unseen?" Alina held her notebook tight, then opened it. She flipped past drawings and headlines, stopped at a blank page. She wrote slowly, then read aloud. "If they do not see you, stand taller. If they do not hear you, speak louder. If they do not believe you, keep telling the truth. Your light is not theirs to dim." The crowd fell silent for a beat, then erupted in applause. Not wild, but full, like thunder rolling over the heart. A boy approached her with a yellow folder. "My teacher made us write essays last night," he said. "Mine's about you." Alina took it carefully. "I want to read it," she said. Every word. Across the street, a mural artist had begun sketching on a wall. Spray cans hissed. Colors bloomed. Pink sneakers. A raised chin. A notebook against a deep blue sky. Volunteers passed out lunch from folding tables. Sandwiches. Fruit. Water bottles. No one went hungry. Underneath the tree in the park, more children gathered. They drew together. Talked about fear. Talked about hope. Talked about the power of being believed. Dr. Monroe stood with city officials. She laid out data, presented research, quoted incidents, named names. This was not an isolated event. This was a system, and systems must be rebuilt. A young man stepped forward. "I work retail," he said. "Your daughter made me realize I have profiled people too. I want to do better." Dr. Monroe looked him in the eye. "Then start today." He nodded, and he did. He posted signs in his store, trained his staff differently, listened, changed. Across social media, the story spread in waves. \# let her be. \# Alina speaks. \# see black children. Artists posted illustrations. Poets wrote odes. Teachers printed the speech for their bulletin boards. Counselors hosted healing circles. Alina returned to school a week later. She walked through the halls quietly. Some students stared. Others whispered. But one by one, they smiled. Her teacher knelt beside her desk. "I am proud of you," she said. "And I'm sorry if we ever made you feel invisible here." Alina looked her in the eye. "I do not want special treatment. I just want fairness." The teacher nodded. "And you will have it." During recess, kids crowded her. "What was it like on TV? Were you scared? Did you cry?" Alina smiled. "I was scared," she said, "but I remembered who I am." They sat around her. She opened her notebook, started to read. not just her story. But there's two. After school, reporters waited again. But Alina walked past them. No words today. Not for headlines. Not for noise. She had math homework and her favorite book to finish. That evening, Dr. Monroe cooked dinner slowly. Alina helped, chopped carrots, tasted the soup, set the table. They ate in peace, their home full of quiet courage. Outside, the world turned. At bedtime, Alina pulled the notebook from under her pillow. She flipped to the back cover, then wrote one final sentence of the night. Being seen is not enough. I want to be remembered. She closed the book, tucked it beneath her mattress, turned off the light. In the darkness, her breathing slowed. The stars outside blinked steadily. Somewhere in the city, another girl sat on her own bed, watching the same video, holding her own notebook, feeling the same fire rise. The next day, she would bring it to school and start writing. This was how movements lived, not only in protests or podiums, but in pencils and playgrounds and whispered words between friends. Dr. Monroe lay awake, thinking, planning, refusing to let the moment pass without roots. She reached for her tablet, opened a new file. Alina's Law, a proposal for safe, equitable practices in youth engagement. She began typing, line by line, policy by policy, guided by her daughter's truth. The next week, the mayor called. He wanted to meet. She agreed. She brought Alina, dressed in her favorite jeans and pink sneakers, notebook in hand. They sat at the long polished table. City leaders on one side, mother and daughter on the other. Alina placed a notebook on the table. This is everything I saw, she said, and everything I need adults to change. The mayor opened the notebook and began to read, line by line. No more silence, no more disbelief, only listening and learning and action. Later, as they walked back outside, reporters asked for comments. Alina stopped, turned to the cameras. I am not the first, she said, but I promise I will not be the last. Then she looked directly into the lens. And the next girl should not have to go through what I did just to be seen. Behind her, the city skyline rose. Tall, complicated, still imperfect. But on that day, something shifted. A voice had been heard. A truth had been honored. A legacy had begun, not in power, not in position, but in presence. The kind of presence that grows like a tree, rooted in justice, climbing toward change, and making space for everyone beneath its branches. Weeks passed, but the ripple never stopped. What began as a single spark had turned into a current. Newspapers across the country featured Alina's photo, her pink sneakers now a symbol of courage, of disruption, of clarity in a world clouded by bias. She returned to the park one afternoon, not for a protest, not for a speech, just a swing. The chains creaked gently as she pushed off the ground. Each rise felt higher. Each drop felt easier. Children waved. Parents smiled. But Alina noticed something else. Signs posted near the playground. We see you. All children welcome. Let her be. A woman sat nearby with a notebook in her lap. She looked up as Alina passed. Your words helped me start writing again, she said. I had stopped after my daughter was profiled at school. Alina slowed the swing. I am glad you started again. The woman smiled. My daughter is too. Back at home, Dr. Monroe worked late into the evening. Her office was cluttered with notes, drafts, legal opinions. A whiteboard stood against the wall. Across the top in bold letters, Alina's Law. Bullet points filled the board. Mandatory bias training for youth-facing employees. Real-time accountability, reporting systems. Community oversight panels. Child protection protocols in retail spaces. Emails came in from across the country. Teachers, clerks, lawyers, activists, all wanted to help. All wanted change. Dr. Monroe created a task force. She appointed experts and students. She gave Alina a chair. Alina took it seriously. She read every proposal. asked hard questions, took notes with her favorite pen. Will this make kids feel safe? Will this stop the next phone called police? Will this help them stay seen? The adults paused, reconsidered, rewrote. At the state level, lawmakers took notice. One senator requested a meeting. He arrived with his staff, wearing a plain suit and nervous smile. I have a daughter, too, he said. Dr. Monroe responded evenly. Then this should matter to you. Alina stood beside her, notebook ready. I want to show you what it felt like, she said. She handed him a page, a simple drawing, a small girl, a wide store, tall police officers, a shrinking shadow. The senator looked down and did not speak for a long time. Eventually, he said, let's write the bill. And they did. Within 2 months, it had a number, a name, a committee. Protests continued outside stores. But now they held clipboards too, collecting signatures, educating shoppers. Alina's story became a curriculum. Teachers led discussions on racial bias. Children shared their own experiences. Classrooms changed. At one middle school, a student raised her hand. I was followed in a bookstore once, she said. I thought I was wrong for feeling bad. The teacher shook her head. No, you were right. And that's what we're changing. Parents formed advocacy circles. They brought their children to City Hall. They read Alina's notebook aloud, word by word. National news invited Alina again. This time, she wore a yellow dress, her hair in braids, her voice steady. She looked into the camera. I am not a symbol, she said. I am a child who was hurt, but I learned, and I grew, and now I will not stop. People listened. Some cried. Some clapped. Some finally understood. At home, the mail began to pile up, letters from all over, some written by hand, some drawn in crayon. Alina opened one. It read, Dear Alina, my brother is scared to go to stores. But after hearing you, he smiled again. Thank you. She pinned it to her wall, next to the mural poster, next to the policy draft, next to her first drawing from that day. Dr. Monroe watched her quietly. Pride was too small a word. This was legacy. This was momentum. This was what it meant to be more than just present. They traveled to D.C. together. The Capitol buzzed with noise and motion. But in the hearing room, a hush fell. Alina sat before a panel of lawmakers. Microphones waited. Cameras blinked. She cleared her throat. My name is Alina Monroe. I am 11 now. She smiled. Thank you for hearing me. She opened her notebook. Read slowly. Each sentence deliberate. Each phrase carried weight. When the police were called on me, I was not doing anything wrong. But everyone acted like I was dangerous. That should not happen to anyone, especially not a kid who just wanted to buy a gift with her own money. Some lawmakers nodded. Others shifted uncomfortably, but no one interrupted. She ended with a promise. I am not here just to talk. I am here to help change the rules. Because no one protected me that day. So now I will protect the next girl. Applause broke protocol. Staffers rose to their feet. Later, the bill passed committee, then the House, then the Senate. And when the governor signed it into law, he used a special pen. He handed it to Alina. You wrote this, he said. She smiled. No, we all did. The law was enforced. Stores changed policies. Police departments retrained their officers. Children felt safer. Not perfect, but safer. One night, back at home, Alina sat at her window again. She looked out at the sky. The stars were clear. The air was still. She opened her notebook one last time. She wrote, My name is Alina Monroe. I told the world my truth, and the world listened. She closed the notebook, placed it in a box, labeled it Volume 1, because her story was not over, not even close. It had only just begun. Alina placed the box on her shelf. It sat between her favorite books, some fantasy, some real, but all filled with truth. She stood back and looked at it for a long time. The gold letters on the label shimmered softly in the lamplight. Volume 1, The Day I Was Seen. She exhaled. then smiled. A new notebook sat waiting on her desk. Crisp pages, a purple cover this time. She opened to the first page. She wrote slowly. This is not just about one girl in one store. This is about every moment we were made to feel small and what we chose to do next. She put the pen down. The house was quiet. Her mother walked by the open door, pausing for just a second. You writing again? She asked. Yes, Alina said. It feels different now. Dr. Monroe stepped inside. Because you know the world is listening? Alina nodded. But more than that, she said, I'm listening to myself. Her mother smiled. That night, the moon rose full and bright, and for the first time in a long time, Alina slept without dreaming of sirens. The next morning, her calendar buzzed. 9:00 a.m. Zoom call with South Africa classroom. She had been invited to speak with students across the ocean. Alina tied her braids neatly. She wore a yellow shirt that said, "Let her be," in bold letters. The call connected. Dozens of faces appeared, some waving, some shy. A girl unmuted her mic. My name is Lethabo, she said. I'm 10. My brother says I remind him of you. Alina grinned. I bet you remind him of something powerful. The conversation flowed. Children asked questions. They told stories of their own. One spoke about being stopped in a bookstore, another about being silenced in class. Alina listened carefully to each one. You don't have to wait to grow up to make a difference, she said. I didn't. The teacher wiped a tear from her eye. Your voice carries farther than you know, she said. Alina closed the call and wrote in her notebook. When you speak, the wind listens. The sea listens. The future listens. She tapped her pen against the desk, then added, so speak like it matters, because it does. Later that week, she was invited to a youth summit, held in a massive auditorium. Dozens of students, bright lights, camera crews. Alina sat backstage, legs swinging off a tall chair. Her mother stood nearby, rehearsing her own line for a panel. You nervous? Dr. Monroe asked. Alina shrugged, more like ready. A producer waved her over. She walked onto the stage. Applause followed her. She stood behind the podium. It was slightly too tall. Someone brought her a box to stand on. She grinned and looked out at the audience. I used to think I needed to fit into the world's version of me, she began. But now I build my own box to stand on. Laughter, then silence, then full attention. I was 11 when they called the police on me. 11. A pause. I wasn't holding a weapon. I wasn't shouting. I was holding a dollar bill. And somehow that was seen as dangerous. Heads nodded. Eyes welled. But I'm not telling you this for sympathy, she continued. I'm telling you this because I chose to write the rest of the story. She held up her notebook. This is mine. And now I help other kids write theirs. Roaring applause. Backstage, organizers clapped. One leaned into a mic. She's the future, they whispered. Another shook their head. She's a now. Alina walked off stage to her mother's open arms. You sounded like a movement, Dr. Monroe whispered. Alina smiled. Maybe I am. Later that year, a museum reached out. The National Museum of Civil Rights. They wanted her notebook. Volume 1. Alina sat with a letter for a long time. Then she opened the box, touched the cover, read a few pages, each word a memory, each line a step. She placed it gently in a display case they sent her. She included a note. These are the first words I wrote as a child who was tired of being silent. Now I write as a child who believed the world can listen and change. The museum held a small ceremony. Crowds gathered in the exhibit hall, next to photographs of history's giants. Her notebook rested under glass. A plaque read, Alina Monroe, Voice of Generation. Children lined up to see it. Some brought their own notebooks. Others stood quietly, eyes wide. A boy asked, Do you think she's real? His teacher smiled. She's more than real. She's proof. Alina wasn't there that day. She was at a community garden, planting wildflowers with local kids. No cameras, no speeches, just dirt under her fingernails and laughter in the air. "This is how we grow hope," she told a 6-year-old beside her. "You have to plant it where people can walk by and see it bloom." The little girl nodded, serious. "Like you." Alina blinked. "Yeah," she said. "Like me." At school, things felt different now. Teachers asked for her opinion. The principal created a student equity board and gave her the first seat. She pushed for books by Black authors, asked for lunchroom monitors to receive better training, suggested the school replace the word discipline with restoration. People listened, not always perfectly, not always quickly, but they listened. One afternoon, a boy who had once teased or passed her a note in class. It read, "I was wrong. You taught me something. Thank you." Alina folded the note and placed it in her new notebook. Volume 2 was filling fast. At the end of that year, the boutique reopened. Under new management, Dr. Monroe received a call. They wanted to meet. Alina agreed to go with her. They walked into the store hand in hand. Everything looked different. New signage, new layout, new staff, diverse, trained, welcoming. The manager stepped forward, a Black woman. "I took this job because of your story," she said. She knelt down to Alina's level. "And we have something for you." She handed her a small box. Alina opened it. Inside was the same bag charm she had wanted that day. Only this one had a tag. For Alina, who turned a moment into a movement. Alina smiled and clipped it to her backpack. She looked around the store. Other children browsed freely. No stares. No whispers. Just normal. Just right. As she turned to leave, a little boy waved at her. She waved back. Outside, the sun warmed her shoulders. Her mother looked down at her. "What are you thinking?" Alina took out her notebook, opened to a blank page, and wrote, "Change doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers from a shelf, or blooms in a garden, or walks beside you wearing pink sneakers." Then she looked up and smiled. "I'm just getting started." The seasons turned. Winter melted into spring, and Alina kept writing. Volume 2 soon joined Volume 1 on the shelf. The edges worn with use, the spine slightly bent, full of speeches, stories, and letters from children around the world. But one afternoon, Alina did something different. She closed her notebook, set her pen aside, and simply looked out the window. The world beyond had changed. Not completely, not perfectly, but undeniably. The boutique across town now held a weekly children's reading hour. Her school had added a class on social justice. The park hosted youth art exhibits once a month. Little things, big things, all stitched together by a thread she had helped pull through. One evening, she and her mother walked to the park together. No crowd, no cameras, just the two of them, hand in hand. They stopped beneath the tree, the same one from that first day. Its branches had grown wider, its roots deeper. Someone had carved a heart into the bark. Inside it were the words, "Let her be." Alina traced it with her fingertips. The wood cool and solid beneath her skin. She leaned against the trunk and closed her eyes. She remembered the fear, the flashing lights, the folded dollar. But she also remembered the speeches, the songs, the first child who wrote to her, the first adult who said, "You made me think." And now she remembered the quiet, the peace. She opened her eyes. Her mother was watching her, gentle and proud. "You okay?" she asked. Alina nodded. "Yeah, I think I'm ready." "For what?" "To just be a kid again." Dr. Monroe smiled. "You never stopped." They walked home slowly, past a mural on the community wall. Alina in her pink sneakers, standing on a box, notebook in hand. Past the corner store, now decorated with artwork from local students. Past a group of kids on bikes, one of them calling out, "Hey, Alina, look what I wrote." She waved. "Keep writing." And she meant it, because this was never just her story. It belonged to every child who had ever been silenced, every mother who had ever watched, every stranger who had ever decided to do better. At home, she placed her notebook in its box, labeled it Volume 3, but left it empty. For now, she opened her window. The wind carried sounds of laughter and music from far away. Somewhere, another child was finding their voice. And that was enough for this chapter. Alina smiled, lay back on her bed, and whispered, "I was seen. I was heard. And now I am free."